I have learned to make struggle look good. I can be going through the worst, but when I walk outside, I have to put on the Iron Man suit.
Ever since you mentioned and introduced me to the concept of the 8 dimensions of wellness, and I went and looked that up, it's just been in the back of my mind at all times that, it's not just about what I was advocating and focused on, which was the reason we met in the first place, which was mental health.
Yep.
It's really about figuring out how to create that balance between all of these different areas of wellness. So now we're going to take an intentional journey to kind of talk about these things as opposed to doing them in our sidebars like we've been doing them and conversations. You and I have been talking about doing something with it for years, and this podcast is the first official step toward doing something to advocate for those, but also, I guess, to kind of check in on ourselves and figure out how we can create better balance within our own internal 8 dimensions.
Yeah, because one of the things that I noticed that when we have, conversations, and just for the record, it's not like we don't talk every week. Like we could go months without, speaking to one another. But when we do, and unintentionally or subconsciously, we somehow have, like, the conversation evolves into, there's always this value there, whether it's about something that we had previously spoken about, or just, it's almost like, I'll go to environment, right? I said this to a friend of mine the other day. You can have a seed and you can put that seed in the dirt over there on the left-hand side and it don't grow at all. You could take that same seed or a seed from that same pack and put it in the dirt on the right-hand side, and it flourishes. And the reason that it flourishes is because that environment is different than that environment over there. And I feel like that, you spoke about community and transparency and honesty and how that helps. And I feel like when we have those conversations, it is the soil for creativity or accountability or brotherhood or just a social conversation or entrepreneurship. Like it's always cultivating into something. And my hope is that we and whoever views this leans into those type of conversations more often.
Absolutely.
Because you don't know that you need it until you have it.
Absolutely.
Because you are operating, you're going through life, and it's every day A, B, C, D, and you don't even realize the things that you necessarily need to have or to address or to accentuate until you can have a conversation with someone whose soil is a little bit different or whose soil is a little bit more enriched. So now when you're in that same pot or in that same circle, your language changes, your actions change, your thought processes change. You might glean perspective, or you can just, that you got somebody who you can have a conversation with. So being able to, is this like being able to have community in that way, whether it's however you do it. I think that's one of the biggest things, and I'm going to speak for the both of us here, that we would like to be taken from whomever, watches this, because we've seen it happen. We lived it. We've been living it since we met.
Absolutely.
Online, completely out of the blue. That's a whole different origin story, but like,
absolutely.
So yeah,
it's this relationship is like many others. I've been in the process of changing environment for years, and I've been experimenting. I've been doing it very clumsily. I've damaged some relationships in the process, and some relationships I think were already damaged and just needed to have whatever done to them. But one of the quotes I've heard recently that is kind of like one of my guiding lights is that if you want to grow, you need to be in rooms where you got to stand on your toes, and that's what I get out of this relationship and many of the other relationships that I feel are helping me transcend who I've always been or who I got comfortable being. That really pulls me out of my comfort zone and creates that accountability system internally, even if it's just guilt, even if it just starts with guilt. That guilt is enough for me to now, especially that I don't have my vices and avoidance, is enough for me to see major changes coming. And I'm somebody who's always been very ambitious, who's always had big dreams, but I've always had excuses for not reaching those dreams. And I'm not willing to accept the excuses anymore. So this is absolutely necessary between you and I hope we find more people along the way that will add on to this accountability system so that we can grow and build some new and different ways of walking ourselves through life. And
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, as I mentioned that, I was going to say we've got some closing items that we'd like to touch on at the end of each episode. Yep. And I was going to hand that over to you because I love the way that you close out your Monday minutes already. But you had something else you want to say before I get there.
No, it was actually, we're on the same page because you said something that made me think about, one, when you watch this, I want you to ask yourself a singular question. We're both here talking in a public forum. And we both kind of expressed how that is helpful, in different ways to the both of us. So I would like, for you to reflect on, what are you doing well publicly, but you're struggling with privately. And we would love for you to hop in the comments, share, we could have talking points in another episode of some of the things that maybe you share with us.
And if you want to be anonymous and you don't feel comfortable sharing it in a public space, feel free to DM. I know some people that I talk to especially when it comes to these types of topics, prefer not to be in a public space talking about them. I get DMs from certain people, and that's the only way they'll communicate about these issues.
Yeah.
Please feel free. We'll keep it anonymous when we mention it. If you'd like it to be something that's mentioned on the public stage, so you can see if more people relate, and if there may be some other ways that you may not have thought of that you can deal with the challenge that you're addressing in your life.
Absolutely. And sit with it. Like, be honest with yourself. Write it down. Make it real. So I'll repeat the question. What is it that you're doing fine in public or publicly that you're struggling with in private? Like he said, if you don't want to share, that's fine. But take the question, sit with it, write it down, and be very honest with yourself. Because if you can lie to the public, but you can't lie to yourself.
Absolutely. And I guess I'll be honest, I'm struggling to figure out what the thing is that I may be dealing with. And I may have already said it on this episode, but do you have something specific that you can point to that you're doing fine with in public but struggling with in private?
Ooh, let's see. Something that I'm doing fine with in public and struggle with in private. If I'm being honest, like, I have learned to make struggle look good. Like, I have a very stoic, kind of nonchalant demeanor. And I can be going through the worst, but when I walk outside, I got to put on the facade. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I feel. I have to put on the Iron Man suit, go outside, go to work, do the 9 to 5, whatever, do the soccer practice. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then go home. And when I take the Iron Man suit off, like, all the things that I'm that's in the back of my mind or whatever the case may be, that's when those kind of come out. So I really think that I've kind of groomed myself or been groomed. That's a whole different conversation, from a very young age to put on that facade, regardless of what's going on. Specifically, I can't think of anything specific right now because the facade goes on like almost, every day almost. Right.
When I was studying and by studying, I don't mean I was being a scholar and I was sitting here taking notes and everything, but I was putting myself in Twitter spaces and in rooms with people where the conversations were focused on neurodiversity. So they were focused on ADHD and autism. And I was curious about whether I was, I had a touch of either of those in my world. But one of the things I walked away from, which is a common term that I learned that is used in that community, is masking. And people put on that mask in order to be accepted in society, or in order to fit in order not to feel different, in order not to be caught out there and ostracized, made fun of, whatever the reason. And it sounds like the same as that suit, same as putting on that suit. It's instead of putting on the suit, it's putting on a mask, same concept. And I think myself, I don't know, were you done articulating? Because I think I relate to that, and I feel
go ahead, yeah.
Okay, I feel like that's kind of where a very similar problem is for me. Is over the past couple of years, for the past 6-7 years, maybe 5-6, my goal has been to show up online and be like really, really share what's really, really going on in my heart. And what's really, really going on with me, no matter how crazy it makes me look, whatever, it was to break all that fear of being who I actually and genuinely was in public.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of that. And in some ways, I did some things that I probably embarrassed myself through. But that didn't so much stick with me and bother me so much as certain feedback I would get from certain people, whether it was indirectly direct, meaning through a conversation, somebody would tell me like, oh, when you said that, it made me sad, or blah, blah, blah. Or seeing people that I've been speaking to about the topics of mental health and watching them actually mask when I know they're going through something. Like we have a private conversation, they'll tell me going through something, then I'll see them in public and saying things that indicate to the world that nothing is wrong.
Yeah.
And it made me start to feel like all that I was doing was for nothing, and then it was a waste of time to do that, because I was doing it not just for me to break my fear, but also to try to see if it could have an impact on the world, maybe change the way we worked or we engaged with each other as men, as black men. So I got back into the habit over the past couple of years of second guessing myself, being more reserved, not sharing as much, and masking, to the point that I barely even show up online anymore, which is cool because being online isn't necessarily what it's all about, but
yeah,
it's where I was having an impact. And I noticed I struggle with continuing that mission. And maybe it's because the mission has to change, but regardless, I noticed that I second guess myself now about those things. So that's something I've definitely been struggling with in private, is making sure that it's only my voice that directs and dictates what actions I take, and not fear of any sort of social response.
Yeah. Man, because in my line of work or profession, and even with my therapist, I've talked a lot about or used that term imposter syndrome, right? Mm-hmm. Because quite honestly, I can't go into a client meeting and not be arrogantly confident, right? Because I'm about to tell these people some things that could change their life.
Mm-hmm. And they have to believe in you and trust you.
And they have to believe and trust in what I say, how I say it. My body language has to be on point. Like all of these different things have to be done. All these different things have to go right. So I can present a recommendation. And the whole time, I'm like, is this the right thing to do?
Mm-hmm.
Not because I don't believe in what I'm saying or anything of that nature. It's almost like a weight of the gravity of that conversation, because once again, we are talking about things that, you know, that's going to affect whom I'm talking about, their family, and maybe their heirs, and all these different things. And I have to present, once again, I'm gonna put this on the shirt, my you know, this arrogant confidence, right? It's almost like being an athlete. Like when you step on the court, you have to step on the court or the field, and you have to change who you are, because you have to be extremely competitive and confident and all those other things. But you know, when I leave that meeting, I be like, take the mask off. I can take the Iron Man suit off.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and then people wonder why I don't talk when I get off work. Like, oh,
It's exhausting.
yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. Very much so.
You know what? It's funny. I think most people that have known me for most of my life are probably completely shocked and surprised by the fact that I show up online and that I have these conversations, because most of my life I was the quiet one. I was the one in the room observing and who would just mumble a few words here and there, and that's about it. But I think a lot of it was because it's a lot of weight holding that mask on, and that ego, that shield. You can't really talk through a shield.
Yep.
So I definitely relate, man. So we're in the habit. We want to change a lot of these things. I imagine is this something that you want to change at some point in time, and you think this is something?
Yeah,
that you...
it's like not necessarily. I don't want to change I don't want to put the mask on no more. You know what I'm saying? Like, example, we talked about, you know, a little bit the I'm good thing, right? Like literally every day you go outside, you're in a grocery store, you're in you know, you'll get somebody who says hello, they'll speak to you, you speak back, and they'll ask the requisite question of, how are you? How are you doing today? Right? Now, 99.9% of the people who ask you that question don't give a damn about how you're doing. Right? Even that small piece, and they mean no harm. Nothing again, they mean no harm at all. But in that moment, when you respond, what's up? It's a mask, right? Because what happened 5 minutes ago, you worried about. What happened the day before, you worried about. What's about to happen, you worried about. But all you say is, I'm good. How are you?
Yep.
So the challenge is the response to the question. Do you always respond with the mask on? And if you respond without the mask, what's the proper response to that person?
Yeah.
Like, do you ask them a question? Do you say, do you really want to know how I am? Because I will gladly tell you. And then let them let them be the judge, because they might not want to know, want to hear what's coming next.
Right.
But but I think it's more about the holistic picture, the environment that you're in. Because if you're in the right environment, do you need to put the mask on?
Exactly. That's it. That's what I've come down to. And I think, you know, one of the first steps that I have to breaking that down for myself is just being aware of when I'm putting on the mask. Learning to watch for that and understanding that that's the result of programming. We've all been, not intentionally, not necessarily maliciously, it's just society. There are things you do and things you don't do in society that are what we're taught as children are right and wrong.
Yep.
and are polite and rude. So we do the things to avoid those, or if we're some sort of rebel, we do the things to buck the system. But
Yep.
either way, I think I've learned that I've had to take a lot of time to understand that who I thought I was isn't necessarily who I am. It's who I learned to be. And now it's time for me to develop new ways of, well, first figure out who, watch for and see who I am, and then see if I can reroute or break this
Yo,
programming down and create some new programs to run.
that's going in the show notes. Who I thought I was. Wait, say that. Hold on, wait a minute. Say it
You know,
again.
I have no idea what I just said. It was words, but it's the truth though, man. I really didn't know who I was, and I
Yeah.
haven't known most of my life who I was because I was the result of a whole bunch of experiences, and that's not really truly who we are. When we come into this world as a baby, we are an empty vessel, pretty much. It's those experiences we have through life that shape us into who we are, and I don't think we realize that even though we didn't maybe consciously make it, we're the result of the choices we make after these experiences. And since they were choice, we have the power to make other choices now. It may not be easy, it may not be comfortable, but we have that power.
We do. And
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that we had that power, I think you have a resource that we can share with the crowd regarding um so for those, that's the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Um Once again, that's a book. I haven't read the whole book, and the reason that I haven't read the whole book is because when I read something, I try to take a couple of nuggets from it. I don't try to take all the information in at once. And when I started reading the book, I didn't get that far in. I already had 2 or 3 actionable things that I felt like I could implement that next day. That's how good I believe the book is. So um, that's just something that we think, we talk to, you don't change overnight. It takes, steps, however old you are. It took you that long to become who you are today. It's going to take some time to change some things. So Atomic Habits by James Clear
It's
is a good
highly
resource.
recommended.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The
Um,
resource that we get, and I'll be honest, man. Again, accountability. I've seen this book in many homes. I have never cracked the spine of this. This is my wife's book. My mother had a copy of this book. I have the audio book on my phone. Have not hit play on this yet, so I haven't even read the cover all the way. Yeah, this has been around me for years. So this is my opportunity to finally get into this because I know, just like I said, I have some goals this year to go see some specific professionals. I know I need to develop the habits or the systems that are going to help me do that. But also, I have some dreams and goals that I really want to obtain. And the number one thing I'm hearing from all the people I've seen who are successful in reaching their goals and the types of goals that I want to reach, they're all saying they start by developing systems and processes and implementing discipline, forms of discipline in your life. And I'm realizing my standard programs do not include discipline. So
mm,
it's time to start developing some habits so I can see how to make sure I create these systems to support the life that I want to live instead of the life that I've had to live.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And next week, we're going to bring this one to a close. We're going
Absolutely.
to talk through the concept that Sha mentioned earlier, the 8 dimensions of wellness. We're going to kind of give an overview of what that is, how that came about for the both of us, what we feel about that particular concept, and how we've utilized that concept since it's been introduced to us. And it really gets you, it makes you or forces you to show where you're weak and where you're strong, and how those things kind of all are rolled into one. Because as we said earlier, we're not perfect, yo. We no perfect people here.
Just better moves.
Better
Absolutely.
moves. So we'll see y'all next week. Thank y'all for tuning in. Remember that question, y'all. We'd love to see some of the responses to the question, whether anonymously or not. But until then, y'all have a great one.
Peace.
No perfect people, just better moves.